Welcome to Pivot and Thrive. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Karen McCarthy, founder of Vermont Collaborative Circle and host of the Pivot and Thrive community. We are dedicated to making the place, Vermont, the place where businesses and families thrive, and we come together for learning, showcase, networking, and collaboration business opportunities. We are recording today on Abenaki land. And if you're welcome to leave your video on if you'd like. It's great to see your presence in the space. And also, if you have distractions around you, try and zoom in and focus with us today, because we have a lot that we're going to cover that's going to make, I hope, a great impact on the way you go about sharing your story and doing business. We are recording today on Abenaki land. We will have the opportunity for a Q&A at the end, so feel free to enter your comments or questions in the chat, and we'll keep it lively. We'll address the questions as they pop up, but we'll also have a Q&A at the end. Today, we're joined by Heather Frechette-Crowley. Heather is the principal and founder of Root Marketing, a firm that specializes in connecting businesses with their target audience. She uses her 20+ years of online and product marketing experience to create engaging content that helps small and medium-sized businesses to make a bigger impact. When she's not negotiating with her feisty tween or rescue pup, Heather enjoys a good cup of coffee, glass of wine, and spending time outdoors, especially on a day like today, and not necessarily in that order. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a pleasure to have you here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. Katie, can you hear? I saw your chat come in that your audio was not working. I just want to make sure.
Katie, are you able to hear us? I'm not sure. Okay. I'll chat with her.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to say. So awesome. I'm now the host. Great. So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Karen. I appreciate the opportunity. As Karen said, I'm Heather Frechette-Crowley. I own Root Marketing, which is a full-service boutique marketing agency that really focuses on working with small and medium-sized businesses. So I know that we're all zoomed out, frankly, and so I'm going to just jump right into it. But before I do, I want to thank you again, Karen, for really being the force behind Vermont Collaborative Circle. As someone who was born and raised here, who left, started a family, came back to raise that family, I certainly appreciate the value and the intent of this group. So thank you. All right. As Karen said, definitely pop questions in the chat. We can take them throughout. I know we're all done with the Zoom, so I want to make this as interactive as I can. I want to preface it by also saying I am a fast talker. I've also had caffeine today. So if I'm going too quickly, please feel free to wave a hand and I will slow it down a little bit. But with that, we will kick it off. Whoops, I am going to share this screen. Take just a second. And perfect. So I'm hoping you're all seeing the big deck right now. All right, I'm gonna get into it. So I thought that I would start really by crushing your souls right out of the gate, right? I want you to know that what you do is not unique. It's not special, regardless of what your mom said, right? And you're probably thinking, Heather, how can you say that? You don't even know me. You don't know what I do. And while it's true that I don't know many of you personally, I did a little research in the Vermont Collaborative Circle database, membership database, and I found that we are fortunate enough to have a number of yoga teachers in our midst. And that's great. Yoga's great. I need more of it. I think we all do. But there are over 100,000 yoga teachers in the country. And these are only the yoga teachers who were registered with the Yoga Alliance. So you know that number is higher, right? So we also are really fortunate in Vermont and in the Vermont Collaborative Circle to have a number of talented graphic designers. And graphic design is a much needed skill, but the skill alone isn't unique. There are 282,000 graphic designers in the country. And that doesn't include the global freelancers who offer services on sites like Upwork and Fiverr, right? So that skill alone isn't unique. Now, we may have some coaches in our virtual room today. I know that we have a number of them in our community. And you're probably thinking, but what I do is unique, right? I'm different because what I provide is special, customized to my clients. Well, before COVID hit, the business coaching industry topped $15 billion, right? So again, it's not unique. Now, this isn't to say that we don't need yoga teachers and graphic designers and business coaches by any means. But what it means is that why a client chooses you has to come down to more than the simple fact that they like what you offer and your price point. Okay, those are definitely two key components, but there's more. And that more is your story. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is really the power of your story, how to uncover that and use it to create connection with your target audience, because it's connection that then drives revenue. So how many of you spent time in corporate America at all? Maybe work with them at all. So as Karin said, I spent over 20 years on marketing teams in corporate America across industries. I worked with global entities, domestic, and I really worked with them to create content, tell their story in a way that connected with their audience so that they could make money. And over that time, I was involved in really countless campaigns. But as I look back and compare those campaigns that were successful with the ones that kind of missed the mark, those in that latter category all have one thing in common. They're missing an element. And the element that they're missing is the human element. Because whether the purchase is a back-end trading software system for the New York Stock Exchange or a pair of Jimmy Choo heels, at the end of the day, the decision is made by a person, right? It's made by a human. And humans make decisions based on what they think is important, not what a company tells them is important. That's what we connect with, right? Our values and emotions are what drive our priorities. So if we connect with those, that's when the action happens. Now, in my opinion, this is where small and medium-sized businesses, their ability to do this far exceeds that of large corporations, because we're small, right? We're nimble. We're closer to the narrative because we live the narrative. The time to share that narrative is now. Coming out of a year like 2020, a year like we had not seen before, people are looking for authenticity because, frankly, our collective BS meter has kind of exploded. We have no tolerance for salesy lingo anymore because we've learned that things can change on a dime and we don't want to waste time. We just want to cut to the heart of the matter. Which is why there's never been a better time to use your story, because it's that story that helps your audience get to the heart of the matter. The most human company and the most human brand, they're the ones that are going to succeed in this new marketplace. And to be human is great, but that requires authenticity. And that's not easy. Because frankly, your authentic self isn't going to resonate with everybody, right? And so we can be adults and we can say, that's okay, not everybody has to like me. But when you really think about it and you think about putting yourself out there, all of a sudden we're back in that junior high cafeteria with the hot lunch tray, like scanning the room for a place to sit, right? Can you feel your stomach, right? How many years ago? I still feel my stomach. And that's because nobody wants to be called out. Nobody wants to be separated. It's so much easier just to blend in, So much easier to just go with the flow. By nature, being authentic requires a certain degree of vulnerability. But it doesn't have to mean bearing your soul to the world. And in fact, revealing too much too soon can actually backfire. The fact is, there's no shortcut to a client relationship, right? You can't circumvent that process. Are any of you Brené Brown fans? Yes, I love Brené Brown. For those of you who may not be familiar with Brené, she is a phenomenal speaker. She's an author. She's also a vulnerability researcher. She has this quote that I love, and she says, live tweeting your bikini wax isn't being vulnerable. You can't cheat real connection. It's built up slowly. It's about trust and time. Being authentic can be scary, but when it's done right, your audience feels like your brand stands for something, and that's what they can align with. Alignment is definitely a buzzword today, but it's powerful, and that's because alignment attracts. When you align with your story, with the who you are, you align with your potential clients. And that's because you probably care about the same things that your potential clients care about. How many of you became entrepreneurs or small business owners because of the awesome benefits packages and paid time off, right? Yeah, no one. We did this because we had a passion for something, because we want to make a difference. And sharing your story attracts people that align with that passion. They align with what you have to offer. And when you connect with people who, as my Bostonian husband would say, are picking up what you're putting down, when you align with them, that discussion all of a sudden changes from selling to buying. There's no need to pitch because they're already on board. Now, I do want to say we're talking about sales and money, and money in and of itself is not inherently bad, right? I mean, more money means more freedom, less overwhelm. We all know that. But women in particular, I think, have a hard time with that because we have this idea that once we attach a price tag to a service, particularly heart-centered service, that somehow that lessens the value. And it doesn't. Being an authentic business owner and being a successful business owner, and successful as in one that generates revenue, those two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. Right? Sometimes we get in our own way because that's in the back of our head. Now, when talking about, content creation and social media, a lot of people are afraid about sharing too much, right? We don't want to go there. But more commonly, people don't share enough. So people get scared. So they either don't share any part of their story. They kind of stand behind what I call this storefront. So they have their website, they have, their Instagram profile, everything's very professional, and they're kind of behind the storefront. Or they say, I'm going to share, but they water it down. And they fall into these traps because they want to appeal to everyone. And of course, when you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. And that's because it's vanilla, right? It kind of blends in. Now, vanilla in and of itself is fine, right? And if you go to your creamy stand and you have 3 options, you have vanilla, chocolate, and mix, vanilla, fares pretty good. But when you go to Ben & Jerry's and you're faced with all of the flavors, all of a sudden the odds of somebody picking vanilla aren't so high. This is the marketplace that we're operating in today. Regardless of your industry, regardless of your service, consumers today have more choices than they ever have, which is why you need a secret ingredient. Now, when I initially went out on my own It took probably 5 or 6 months for me to finally get my website up there. And that's because every time I sat down to write the copy, I realized that I sounded exactly like every company I had ever worked for, which made sense because I created content for every company I had ever worked for. That would have been fine, except for the fact that I wasn't in corporate America anymore. I didn't want to work with those big guys. But buzzword bingo was my default, right? That was the language that I knew. Unfortunately, the people that I wanted to work with, they didn't connect with those buzzwords. And in my heart, neither did I. I was really fortunate at the time to be working with a great business coach. And she finally called me out on it. And she just said, Heather, where are you in this content? And she was absolutely right. Of course, that meant that I had to take time and kind of figure out, all right, what is my story? And how much of that am I comfortable sharing? But once I started infusing more of me into that, and I didn't try to be somebody else, that's when my client base grew. Because by aligning with my story and not trying to, to be someone else, I was attracting those people who wanted to work with me. I was the secret sauce in my business, and each of you are the secret sauce in your business. Do any of you know who Simon Sinek is? I love Simon Sinek. So you might be thinking, okay, how do I uncover my story though, right? What is my story? How do I really know what it is? So first, I want you to know that that's perfectly normal, right? That oftentimes our story is not obvious, especially to us, because we bury that for a variety of ways, for a variety of reasons. So I'm going to pull in Simon Sinek to give you some tips on how to uncover your story. He is, for those of you who aren't familiar with Simon Sinek, he is a speaker. He has really famous TED Talks. He's an author, but he got started because he worked with large advertising agencies throughout Europe. And as I said, his most famous TED Talk is Start with Why. And in that TED Talk, he brings up the idea of the golden circle. And what the golden circle says is that most people, when trying to communicate, particularly professionally, they start in that outer ring, which is kind of superficial. They start with what? And then they work their way in, but very few of them ever actually get to that why, to the heart of the matter. So what is pretty easy? What is what you do, what you produce, what you offer. How you do it, that's getting a little closer. That's your unique differentiator. But the why, that's where that heart comes in. That's where the passion is. That's your purpose, a cause or belief. Now, I'm big on examples because I think we learn better on examples. So I want to use my mom as an example. A couple of years ago, my mother, kind of out of nowhere, was like, hey, I'm going to start an ice cream truck. Okay, right? So that's what she does. She sells ice cream. How does she do it? Well, the differentiators that she sells only sells Vermont made ice cream, and she makes her own waffle cones. So the name of her ice cream truck is Waffly Good, which was created by my oldest niece, who was about 10 at the time. So that's kind of a cool differentiator. But the why she does it for her 3 granddaughters. She did it because she wanted to work with them in this ice cream truck, right? She wanted to show them work ethic in action. She wanted to show them that it was hard, but that you could do it. If you had this dream, right, you can do it. Any profits that my mother makes from Waffly Good go into a fund for the girls for college. That's what you connect with, right? That's a lot different than, oh, I'm just selling ice cream, okay? She wants to connect with her granddaughters. Now, why is not your story in its totality? but your story is closely connected to your why. And when you use story, you connect with your audience. So, as Simon says, which I understand what I just mentioned there, as Simon Sinek says, the goal isn't to do business with everyone who needs what you offer. It's to do business with those who believe what you believe. Those who connect with your why, they're connecting with your story. I just want to check there was a chat, Karen. Feel free to mention it.
People are just joining in, sharing how sweet the story was, and just connecting on that part.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. I couldn't access them. I was hoping there weren't questions there. You know, when you use your story to connect and you bring out the emotions behind that why, you attract clients who believe what you believe. And that's when things get easier. When you attract the right people, then it's not about pushing and selling what you have. Then it's about connecting with those who need and want it most, right? It's kind of nature's sales funnel. So I'm big on examples. So I want to give you another example of really the power of story in action. A few years ago, I was consulting with a boutique. And this boutique sold beautiful home goods, really at high price points. The two women owned it. They loved their products. They really hand selected everything they sold. But they came to me because the issue was, although customers were very complimentary when they were in the shop and were oohing and eyeing, it wasn't translating into sales. And so these women wanted help kind of flushing out the stories behind their products and telling these stories so that they could connect more with prospective clients. So I'm going to go into how we really flesh this story out. But before I do, this is an example of a piece of promo material that they used about this lumbar pillow. You can see handmade in Mexico with 100% sheep's wool. Before I go on, would anyone care to venture a guess as to how much this pillow was selling for? And Karen, if you can just say it, because I can't see the comments, that would be awesome if people would like to venture a guess.
So Sally says $259. I'm sorry I don't know your name, but Vermont Yoga Collective, $250.
I kind of feel like I'm on Price is Right. So it's interesting because most people, when I've shared this story before, kind of are like, I don't know, $75 maybe, right? In a low ball. So the pillow actually sold for $195. And I'm going to actually move my little thing here. So when I started working with these women and I dug into, okay, what's the story behind this piece? It's beautiful. It's really a piece of art. What we found out is that in this village in rural Mexico, a woman, Pastora was her name, her father died suddenly, and she became the sole caregiver of her 4 younger sisters. So there's very little opportunity in this village. To make money, she began using her sheep's wool, weaving it. She eventually created this cooperative, which still exists today. And it employs widows and single women in the village, really giving them a way to provide for themselves and their families. The lumbar pillow that's pictured takes 3 solid days to make from start to finish. Now, when we uncovered this information, we created a display, which was put up in the shop that really talked about this story. And then we also created product cards. We had product cards printed, which we would give when people purchased the product, because frankly, when I spend $200 on a pillow, I want to know the story. And especially if I'm giving that pillow as a gift, this little product card, that's some added value. Now, the description alone is, there's nothing wrong with that. It certainly aligns with people who appreciate fine items. It aligns with people who are concerned about sustainability and workers' rights globally. But when you make it personal, when we tie in the story of Pastora and how that cooperative blossomed and how it continues to provide opportunity for women in that village, then we create connection. And that's the power of story. That's when $200 pillows sell. Now, it is a beautiful day. And I could go on and on, but I want to wrap this up. So when you're using your story, these are some key points to remember. Your story is going to connect with your why. Okay, your story is what goes deep. It's not the demographic superficial level. It's the emotional part. But when your story is used, it's going to attract people who want what you offer. Because authenticity doesn't resonate with everyone, right? So it automatically weeds out those people who aren't interested in your why. They're not interested. They're not going to be good fits for you. When you create the connection, that's when the conversation that moves from selling to buying, it becomes easier. It does, of course, require some degree of vulnerability, but remember, you don't have to bare your soul to be authentic. The ultimate goal, the ultimate benefit, I think, of using your story is that it claims your role as the secret ingredient in your business, right? You are that secret sauce. And when you own your story, that becomes apparent. So I want to thank you guys again. Before I take questions, I do want to let you know that I just recently came out with a one-day brand intensive. This is perfect for people who are like, I don't know what my story is. How does this impact my brand? Essentially, we go one-on-one one day and we get it done. I always offer 45-minute connection calls. They're free. It's a great way to kind of together we look at where you are today, where you want to be, what the gap is. I encourage you to take a quick snapshot of these links with your phone, or I know that Karen's going to share the video. Would love to chat with you, and definitely feel free if you have questions. I am going to stop sharing so that I can see you. And yeah, and take any questions. That's kind of a whirlwind. I told you I spoke quickly.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much, Heather. We do have a question in the chat. Katie asks, can you speak to the line between sharing your story and serving your customers? I sometimes feel like I have to always be giving my customers content of value and don't want to be talking about myself too much.
Yeah, that's a really great question. That's something that I struggle with, right? Because frankly, we are inundated with content today, and it's drilled in our head. Provide value, no fluff, right? Here's the thing. There's the know, like, and trust factor, that KLT. People want value, but they also want to work with people who they know, like, and trust. And they can't get to know you and like you and trust you if you don't share. So, keep that in mind. Certainly bring value in. If for those that you only share your story with and you don't provide value, that's more like on a personal relationship level. But it's the magic comes when you weave those together. I hope that helps.
That's great. Sally asks, I feel like I have my story, in quotes, on my website in the About Me section. Where else am I telling my story?
That's great, Sally. Social media, obviously the website, as you mentioned, and I'm not sure, Sally, if you have a blog, anything that you put out there, how you connect. And feel free to hop off the mic if you want, Sally, because how do you connect with your audience?
I'm unmuting myself.
Oh, perfect.
I'm pretty good about posting on Instagram, and I try to, instead of just like blah blah, I did this project, that project, get more of a flavor, whether it's where I'm finding inspiration, a mix of projects, and trying to get the point across, like, who am I? So I am a little bit more unique. I feel like one of my strengths as a designer is, because it's me, there's like no red tape, no this, no that. Like, I'm in it with you all the way to the end. And that's sort of the message that I'm always trying to get across. So it is like my story. I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel like I put it out there on the about section that does differentiate me.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if there's like other ways to continue to think about it, or other platforms, or how, if you had other examples of.
Yeah. So, and that's a really good point, because sometimes we think, well, my about me section's up there, right? How many people read that, right? And right. And, you know, I mean, sure, we can find out when we look at our website analytics and things like that. But the first time somebody hears about you is probably not going to be on that about me section. They didn't go directly to your about me section.
Right.
So, but I love that you said, you know, the images that you share on Instagram, on social media, those are little kind of windows into your day, windows into your life. And you can also, I'm trying to think quickly of an example. I'm a big fan of reusing content. Okay. So if you can take that about me, let's say, and let's say in the about me section, you highlight like 3 differentiators. You know, you're working with me. I love how you just said that, like no red tape. You can take that and that same theme, that same point, and tie it in to your different social media posts, right? Examples of, hey, just me at my desk today. Yep, that's right. You get me, you know, and I'm obviously, if that is your tone, I'm not.
Right.
But that's a way to share it. And we get locked in these boxes of like, I need to only provide value, and I'm not putting anything out there until it is a 40-page ebook, and that's the way it is. And that's not the way we consume information. That's not the way that we consume, which is so interesting, because most of us, you know, when I say to people, would you read a 40-page ebook? They're like, no, of course not. Then why would you, then don't think you have to put that out there. I think we forget sometimes that as business owners that we're also consumers. So like model your own consumer behavior, if that makes sense. What do you like? So yeah, but that's a great question, because people do, they write the story and it kind of the about me, and it's static and it's on their website. And they're like, well, it's done, but it's how you live, you know?
Well, that's a good suggestion about sort of taking snippets of the story and weaving it back into Instagram again with different visuals. That I could see how that could work.
Yeah, and there's another thing too that I want to mention. People are often afraid, as I said, I'm a big proponent of reusing content, and people are afraid. They say, well, won't my audience get sick of it? Here's the thing: between the mix of social media algorithms, first of all, everything you put out, all of your followers do not see everything you put out, right? So between that and the fact that it really takes 7 times to get in front of someone, you know, they're not thinking, oh my goodness, Sally just put that out last week. What, you know, she must be, you know, having a hard time. We think that because we get super phobic about it, but our audience isn't thinking that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yep.
That's a great reminder. I love the comment about leveraging what it is that you already do to extend your reach and make a bigger impact. That's something that we're always encouraging people to do, you know, work smarter, not harder, because you're already doing great work. And the way that you share your story can have such a compelling impact in how people engage with you. And as you said, build that like, know, and trust relationship.
Yeah.
Eve has a comment. She says, it's not a question, but I love the idea that authenticity weeds out people that are interested. As a yoga teacher living in a sea of other yoga teachers, this is a really important reminder.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Eve. And it's true, because and sometimes I get a little woo woo, right? But that it really is, I feel like, the universe's way of weeding out those people. And as business owners, and especially when we're starting out, we waste so much time kind of going up the wrong hill, right? And we're like, but I can work with that person. I can help them. And it's like, but you're struggling to get up that hill when, look at right here, all of those people in the valley with you, right? They're drawn to you because you're the secret sauce. So yeah, it's we all struggle with it, right? Because it's like the one, I think back to college, the one guy you couldn't have was the one you wanted, right? It was like, oh, the one guy, if only. It's like, no, look at all these others. Yeah. Don't tell my husband that. He'll be like, oh, I was the other. Like, no, it's fine. You're fine.
I love your anecdotes. That's fantastic. I've personally been trying to apply this to my own work. When I, send out an email and you get unsubscriptions, it can be so painful. And at the same time, you're like, great. I know that I'm talking to the audience who connects with what it is that I have to share. So
yes,
trying to retrain myself not to see that as a loss.
Yeah. And I do it too. I do it too. I'll look, it'd be like 35 likes and 1 unlike. And I was like, who unliked? Where do they live? Like all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to get to the bottom of that. No, it's okay. It's human struggle.
Well, thank you so much. This has just been really fantastic. And if folks have an interest in connecting with you, I did drop the links that you mentioned in the chat. And is there an email that they should reach you by?
Reach out, heather@rootmktg.com. Yeah, feel free. I would love to chat, to connect with you. Soon we'll be able to do it, over coffee in person. I'm very hopeful of that.
That would be great. And Heather's also a member of our Pivot and Thrive community, so you're welcome to connect with her there, continue the conversation, and keep developing your story. It's changing. It's enabling you to grow as a person and a business owner. And Heather, thank you so much for sharing with us these insights on how we can use what we know about ourselves and our clients to leverage the work we're already doing and share our story in a more impactful way. This is fantastic.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody.
Absolutely. Coming up next week on Wednesday at noon, we have a panel discussion on crowdfunding. We're going to hear from 4 of our Pivot and Thrive members who are either actively or have just completed a crowdfunding campaign, thinking about ways that you could share your story as an alternative funding stream. This might really tie into the work you've learned about today, if you're considering crowdfunding as a possible option for your business. And then the following week, we have a workshop with Deshay Peacock on having an umbrella brand, how to connect when you're a multi-passionate entrepreneur. So again, really, really aligned with the storytelling and helping people to have a deeper connection with you in a way that supports your business. So I hope you'll check those out. And then at the end of the month, we're hosting a wellness fair, which brings together more than 20 of our community members to offer all sorts of different events, live events, virtual, pre-recorded, on demand, products and promo codes. So that'll be taking place April 26th through May 7th. And I hope you'll check it out. I'll drop the link in the chat. And I just look forward to connecting with you all more. And thank you for your time today, Heather. It really is a pleasure to connect with you and to hear your humor. Thank you for sharing your stories with us. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Here. Oh, I'm still the host.
It's okay. Okay. I can't